Collaborative Grouping, presented by Chelsea Morrow. So what is collaborative grouping? Collaborative grouping is important to use in the classroom because it allows students to work together, build social skills, and gain knowledge from their peers. It engages students in their learning, and it's really important that the teacher has an idea of how he or she wants to group his or her students and how many students do they want in each group. There are many strategies that you can use to group your students, but what I'm going to focus on today is grouping by their interests, their friendships, and their strengths and weaknesses. Something that I find very important to use in the classroom is to base students' grouping according to their interests. So at the beginning of the school year, the teacher would pass out a student interest survey, and this survey could be different depending on each subject, but today I'm going to focus on reading. So depending on the age group, you could ask from 5 to 10 questions. So I'm going to focus on a third grade class, so I'm only going to ask around 7 questions. And what this survey is going to do is it's going to let me know what the students like about reading, what they don't like about reading, and what, like, maybe their favorite characters and books. And based on that, I'm going to group my students. On the left, I have posted a reading interest inventory that I've used in the past, and it worked really well with my students. I have directions posted, and the students are either going to circle the best answer or they're going to fill in the best answer. And if you're working with younger students, like kindergarten or first grade, maybe they're not that great at writing complete sentences or writing words, so maybe you wouldn't do as much fill in the best answer. But as the students are older, you would want to incorporate those into the inventory. So my first question is, do you enjoy reading? Yes or no? Do you like being read to? Yes or no? Some students do not like being read to. Some students love being read to. So if they love being read to or they hate being read to, maybe the students who don't like being read to could be the ones who are reading to the students. Do you like reading aloud? If you're working in groups, you are probably going to have a situation where the students need to read to their group members. So if the student doesn't like reading aloud, then they could say no and they wouldn't be the ones chosen to read in their groups. What kind of books do you like to read? What is your favorite book and why? What are some of your favorite TV shows or movies? And who is your favorite movie, book, or TV character? After observing your students and their groups, you might realize that maybe it wasn't the best decision to put certain students together because maybe they want to talk too much about things that don't relate to the topics, or maybe they don't work well together because their personalities completely clash and they're not able to get along with each other. So that can cause a lot of conflicts within the group. So it's important to place students in groups where they feel comfortable in their learning environment, but they also are able to focus on the classwork. So it's totally okay to switch up the groups and see if that works. One thing that I love about collaborative grouping is that each student has their own set of strengths and weaknesses. So if one student really struggles in math, but they're really great in reading, then that gives a student the opportunity to teach their peers about reading and to help their peers out, but they can also get help from their classmates. And a lot of times I've realized that many students, as comfortable as they feel with the teacher, they would rather have their classmates help them with something. So for example, if Johnny is a stronger reader than Sheila, Johnny could be the leader for the reading assignment, and he could give Sheila tips on different reading strategies that he uses, and it would make Sheila feel more comfortable than going to the teacher about this problem. So you're probably wondering, all right, I know my students' strengths and weaknesses, I know their interests, I know who they get along with and who they don't get along with, but how do the students know which group they need to go in? Because that's something that's really important, and it's really easy for the students and the teacher, for the teacher to say, all right, students, get in your groups. So I've created this chart where each student has an index card with their name at the very top. and each group has a different colored construction paper that's been laminated, and in bold print it says red group. For example, if it's a red group, it's going to have a big sheet of red construction paper that's going to say red group in the center of it. Under this red construction paper, there are 5 pockets, because as a teacher, I'm going to decide that I want at most 5 students in a group. So I'm going to have 5 pockets under this red sheet of paper, and every day I'm going to stick the students' index cards into the pocket. And maybe one day I decide I only want 2 students per group. So I'm going to place 2 index cards in each pocket, and I'm going to have a variety of colors. And maybe I don't use all of the colors for the groups, but that's okay. But it just makes it easy for the teacher to be able to be flexible with the groups and to be able to change the groups if he or she wants to do that. Just remember that collaborative grouping is something that should be taken seriously by the teacher. Collaborative grouping is used to help students gain knowledge and to get feedback from their peers and listen to what their peers have to say about certain subjects and topics, and just being able to have different views and listen to different views that their peers have. It's important to group students by their interests, their friendships, and their strengths and weaknesses in order to have the best outcome. And if one thing might sound great in your mind and you end up using that way of grouping students, but it turns out it was a disaster, that's okay. It is fine to move your students around until you feel like you have a great group of students who work really well together.